Hello class, and welcome to the history of medieval Europe. In this course, we're going to look at the history of Europe from the fall of the Western Roman Empire until the fall of Byzantium, or the Eastern Roman Empire. We'll also kind of play around at the back end there, get a little bit into the Age of Exploration with Columbus and the Spanish, kind of continuing the Reconquista, the reconquest of Spain, and pushing that same kind of momentum out into the Atlantic and across the ocean. Again, with a lot of these courses, required European history courses, it can be sometimes hard to figure out, why are we taking these? What relevance does this have to the modern world? But I think you'll find through this course that a lot of Western civilization, the shared intellectual and cultural traditions that we have, that America is the inheritor to, really get formulated during the medieval period. It's the connecting tissue that takes us from the classical world and connects it to the early modern period that this country and every country that we know of, basically, at least in North America, springs out of. So I think it's good to understand the process of how we get from point A to point B, which gets us to today. So think of this period as a crossroads or a borderline between kind of different historical periods. Hopefully that helps liven it up a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to run you through the syllabus, so I recommend having that open next to you. And again, I'll just do a brief summary of the course requirements. And a good place to start off with that is the course textbooks. The one that you're going to use pretty much every day is Judith M. Bennett, Medieval Europe: A Short History. The 11th edition should still be the newest edition, therefore it shouldn't be that hard to get. Particularly being that it's been out for a few years, there should be a pretty thriving used market for that. So hopefully you can get that on the cheap. Warren Hollister, Medieval Europe: A Source Book. That'll have some supplemental readings, the primary documents, things actually from the period that we can take a look at and let the people speak in their own words, which I think is always useful, is always good. And then the last one, Richard Cooper, Chivalry and Violence in Medieval Europe. You'll use a few chapters out of that for class readings, and then you'll use the rest of it for your term paper, which we'll talk about more in a second. That one might be a bit on the pricey side. You can see if you could find an ebook version of it to try to chop the price down some. So that's the ingredients that you're going to need for the class. Then as far as what you're going to do with them, the biggest assignment is going to be a critical analysis paper, a term paper. And for this, you're going to read a book called The Poem of the Cid, which is a Spanish epic poem about one of their great cultural heroes from the medieval period. And I think it's a real interesting look at knighthood, which is going to be one of the through themes of this class. You can't think of, when you hear, medieval Europe or medieval times, the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, call it what you will, the first image that comes to mind right away is the image of a knight in armor. And I think they're a kind of people that only exist in this period, and I think it's a good use of our time to try to understand those guys, because I think if you can understand the knight, they're kind of the key to getting into the world and the mindset of medieval Europe. And I think this book, The Poem of the Cid, really does that quite well. The main character is a great hero by the standards of the time. By our standards, not the nicest guy. He essentially robs people for a living. Kind of gets to start by defrauding some bankers. Can be temperamental or cruel to his followers, and again, how he chooses to apply violence would be different from kind of how we think it should be applied today. So you're going to read that, and I've got a series of prompts prepared. You can pick one out of the questions that I kind of pose. So you'll compare the Poem of the Cid to a chapter or two out of Cooper and the other course readings that we do. And you'll try to come up with something that speaks to, tries to reveal some truth about medieval the Society of Medieval Europe. Again, there will be a whole separate document that explains that assignment. That will be up on the Blackboard site, as will obviously this entire course. You're hopefully watching this on Blackboard, so shouldn't have to explain that Blackboard is how this course will run. I don't think we'll have any kind of real-time sessions, kind of video conference sessions, unless people really want one. We can try to set one up. But I think these courses are generally designed that people can move through them roughly at their own pace. Again, I'm sure that all or most of you have jobs. If you aren't able to do, one course unit per day, which is the recommended pace, that's understandable. Try not to get too far behind. If you're more than 3 classes behind, you're going to have a hard time catching up. But yeah, obviously, if you're busy during the week or have a hard day at work, you want to save something for the weekend, that's on you. And I trust you guys enough to know how to set your own pace. So that's the paper. That's 40% of your grade. Everything else is worth 20%. Every day, you're going to have some kind of assignment to do as part of the coursework. So again, think of them as quizzes or unit summaries. But again, it's a question that tests you basically to see that you've done the reading and can process the information in the reading correctly. There will also be message boards, kind of discussion forums. That's how we're going to work the course participation grade. I want you to ask or answer a question on those boards every day. And again, I'll leave some kind of opinion question on there, just something that you can speak to, without worrying too much about, what is the right answer. And then there'll be a section in there that you can just ask some questions that you have about the reading. Again, we're going to a time that is very different from ours, using language that is very different from ours, using ideas that are very different from ours. Don't be upset if you don't understand this all on your first read. I'm here, your classmates are here to ask and answer questions. So please do that. Don't try to... It seems to be that a lot of students in online classes will get stuck. They don't feel that they can kind of poke their heads up to ask about it, and then they end up getting discouraged and not doing as well as they could. I don't want that to happen to you guys. So please, use those forums, ask things. And then we do have a midterm and a final, shorter essays that will kind of break the course in half, and then we'll focus just on each half of the course. And it's 20% too. Again, I don't take that too seriously. What I'm not interested in is kind of directly quizzing you on knowledge and trivia. You've got the internet on your phone now. You can look that up. What I'm looking for in all these is, how do you think? How do you take information, analyze it, and then present your analysis, via the written word? What that means in pretty much all things, I am looking at spelling and grammar and punctuation, and again, how can you structure an argument to make it sensible, to make sure that other people can understand what you're talking about. There will be a writing guide up on Blackboard, so you can kind of look at what some of my expectations are as far as writing goes. Alright, so that's how you will be graded. Let's see, plagiarism, please don't do it. Make sure your work is your own. If you're cutting and pasting anything, you're doing it wrong and will fail. So please don't do that. The other thing that I want to focus on, particularly for your midterms and midterm final and paper, is that if you're ever doing outside research, make sure that the research that you're doing is coming from credible academic authors. Is it published by a university press? If so, it's good. If it's not, you might want to have second thoughts about using it. If the website ends in .com, you probably shouldn't use it. There's an important process of peer review to make sure that someone has said this thing, other people that have studied the subject look at it and say, yeah, this sounds reasonable. Without that, again, you can spin off into kind of, La La Land pretty quickly. Particularly, for a period that is as controlled by myth and stories as medieval Europe. People think a lot of crazy things that aren't actually true. So, looking to see that it comes through kind of a peer-reviewed academic system is a good way to sort out, stuff that is worth thinking about and knowing about, and just the complete nonsense. So really, look for that. Again, I will take off points for bad sources as assignments come up. And again, if you're caught, again, taking things wholesale from the internet, taking things from another classmate, that's automatic failure of that assignment, possibly of the course, possibly exposure from the school. The school does take this stuff seriously. With the big focus on writing that this course has, I don't know if the Writing Center has a distance learning setup. Again, I don't think any of you are actually on campus. But I believe that there is a way that you can send your papers in to the Learning Center and have the tutors there take a look at it, even over the summer. Again, if writing is not your strong point, and as I understand it, none of you are liberal arts majors, are all kind of variations on the theme of nursing major for the most part. Now you don't you didn't pick that subject because of your burning passion for writing. So if writing's not your strong point, if there's some issues that I'm kind of consistently picking on, go to the Writing Center. There's no shame in that. I do it in my own work. I'm a student myself. Again, having an editor, having someone to take a look at it always helps. So please avail yourselves of that. Course objectives, pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. Course skills, again, learning to read critically and write argumentatively is the greatest skill I think you could learn in college. Other than those things that will, if you're going to be elbows deep inside of people, nursing majors. Obviously, there's some different skills you're learning. But yeah, and we live in a world that is run increasingly by email. And if you can't present yourself well in writing, it's going to make getting a job that much harder. Your first contact is going to be the written word, so learning how to make that as polished as possible is a good thing. Okay. And then from there we get into a breakdown of the course by day. Again, we're moving fast here. I wish we had time to slow down and digest this stuff a little bit. We don't necessarily. So, again, stay on pace. If you're having a hard time with anything, reach out, ask for help. You could go from treading water to drowning pretty quickly at the speed that we're moving. So that's not all gloom and doom and misery. To start off with, for the first day, I want you to introduce yourself. One of the big drawbacks of these online courses is how impersonal they feel. That's why I'm doing this video, so that we have some kind of contact. You see my face at least once. So then I know who you guys are a little bit and where you're coming from. For that first day, I want you go to the discussion board for Unit 1, or for the introduction, and make a little family coat of arms. Again, going to that idea of knighthood, that these guys all had kind of symbols that they put on their shields that would tell their story, tell some truth about them and their family. So, do the same for yourself, and just kind of tell me a little bit about who you are. If you want to add a picture to your Blackboard profile, so much the better. I think, again, it just adds that human element that we might be lacking otherwise. Alright, so I think that should do it. Any questions you have, please let me know. I don't think I specified this. For those written assignments at the end of each unit, I'm looking for about a page, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs that will, I think that's a good length to answer those things in. Okay, I think that does it. Good luck, everyone, and I'll see you in class.